And it brings back memories as a kid, getting ready to turn on the TV to watch all the baseball games. So it's a very exciting time in the baseball world, and I think everyone here is ready to go out there and play.
Yes, it is opening day for the Minnesota Twins. We are live here at Kauffman Stadium as the Twins get ready to open the season against the Kansas City Royals. Joining me now is Do-Hyoung Park, who works for MLB and covers the Minnesota Twins and really gets a lot of the scoops. I go to him to find out what's going on with the club. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time.
Appreciate that. It's kind of tough to follow up Derek Falvey, but I do my best here.
You can give us the real story. He gives us the management side. He gives us the corporate side. You can give us the real side of this club. But just about opening day and the feeling of this team, because you've been around this team for numerous seasons. To me, it seems different. It seems like there's a different attitude among the players.
You know what the difference is this year? It's that they got the taste last year. They got the taste. They saw what this core, this group that they brought here, the young guys, the stars put together, they saw what it did for them last October when they broke that playoff losing streak. They won that wild card series. They made a run of it in the division series against the Astros, and that's kind of the tone with which they embarked on this spring. It also makes a difference in the vibes that Byron Buxton and the rest of the position player group got through spring healthy. That's never something you can take for granted. And a healthy Buxton is an enthusiastic Buxton who's there bouncing around for his teammates. He clearly feels really good, and that does so much for the clubhouse vibe, not just with Buxton as a presence in there, but in also the confidence he gives the pitchers and everybody else around, knowing what he's there to do with them.
All right. Are you nervous about Byron, though? I mean, you were down in spring training. You watched all the at-bats. You saw him dive for balls. Where do you think that the fans' comfort should be with Byron?
I think you realistically always have to be nervous. And I mean, it's one of those things where we've seen this version of him before. We've seen him come into opening day healthy time after time. And it's just a matter of now putting it together for 162 games, or as close to 162 as you can. I think there's always going to be nerves there. I mean, this is a road they've gone down before. And at the same time, this is the season where he comes in better than I think he has in the last couple of years. There's just nothing lingering in that knee this time. But also there's a prove-it element to it too. And I think that's evident to everybody here in our orbit. That's evident to Buxton himself. That's evident to everybody around the Twins organization. They know how much rides on him being healthy and successful and being present and available. That's the phrase he kept using with us yesterday, present and available, because he knows the importance of this. And he knows what he means to this team. Now, again, we've been down this path before, and now he's got to go out and show it. This is about the best runway possible they could have hoped for, with the best spring they could have hoped for. Now it's about, is this finally the year? And I don't think you cannot be nervous about that until he's shown that he's actually capable of that.
Yeah, that's true. All right, speaking of injuries, though, the bullpen is pretty beat up. Before we get your thoughts on what they should do, manager Rocco Baldelli addressed that with the media about how he sees his bullpen moving forward without his closer.
Guys are going to shift into some different innings that they probably weren't going to be pitching before. But regardless of what inning they're pitching, the way that our guys are used, it doesn't really change that much. Yes, the inning changes, but besides the inning, we're going to match up. We're going to put our guys out there against runs of hitters that we think make sense for them to get outs. Griffin Jacks and Brock Stewart are two guys that they pitched late inning situations for us already. They picked up saves along the way and finished games. So I think we have guys that are very capable of sliding into different spots. And, I haven't mapped it out and mocked out all of the different – you really can't necessarily do that.
Well, that's manager Rocco Baldelli. He doesn't seem to be worried about it, but when he says he doesn't know exactly how he's going to do it, that seems concerning to me when it's opening day and we don't really know the pecking order of the pen.
Now, reading between the lines and kind of understanding how Rocco operates with pitching coach Pete Mackey, I think that's probably understating it a little bit. So I think how it's going to go is with the bullpen in particular, they always have an idea of it's runs in the lineup. It's specific, like 3, 4, 5, or 6, 7, 8 in the order, depending on who those hitters are. They have an idea of which reliever they want to face those guys.
Okay.
Now, I think it's not a case where you got Joan Duran in the 9th inning, you got Jackson Stewart in the 8th, and then you piece it together there. I think instead of having those more defined roles, my sense is that they've got an idea of who they want to face, who they want facing against which hitters in which situations. Now, as to how that puzzle comes together, what that looks like as far as what part of the lineup comes up in the 6th or in the 7th, I don't think there's any way to map that out so far.
Okay.
But with Griffin Jackson, Brock Stewart, they're going to be the late guys, and then I think Steven Okert and Jay Jackson are going to be kind of the veteran guys that are going to be tasked with the bridge innings. And some of the younger guys are going to have to pitch in too. I just think they just don't know in what order yet, but it's going to depend on the matchups out there.
So are you worried at all about Jackson Stewart being to take those roles where you can't give up a run, where you can't give up a big hit? Do you feel they have it in their structure that they can handle that, the bridge, until Duran and the rest return?
I think the nice thing is, and this is part of why Rocco doesn't love to call a guy the closer, even though Joan Duran's done that, Taylor Rogers before him, in name, just because they don't want people to freak out when it happened a couple times last year that Griffin Jacks pitched the 9th inning, just based on matchups, based on rest, based on what part of the lineups were coming up and that sort of thing. So Jacks has been there, Stewart has been there, and I think it's also really significant that in last season's playoffs, Griffin Jacks got huge high-pressure outs, Brock Stewart got huge high-pressure outs. The 9th inning is a different animal. The 8th and 9th are different animals, but 7th and 8th inning high-leverage situations in a postseason with an 18-game playoff losing streak on the line is also a big different animal, and I think they proved their bona fides there.
All right. Another player that was absolutely ridiculous in his debut was Royce Lewis. And I asked Derek how he thinks he's going to handle the pressure, because everybody's going to expect him to come up and hit a grand slam every time he goes to the plate with bases loaded. And we all know baseball's a game of failure. So how do you think he's going to handle that pressure? Because people have elevated him to superstar status off just such a small sample size.
You know what I think of? Not just my interactions with Royce Lewis in the clubhouse, because you know this, Jim. He's cool as a cucumber. He's not fazed. But also, when I look at the pressure of this, the pressure of what he's doing in the batter's box, this is what he knows how to do. This is what he's good at. I feel like the pressure that he's gone through the last couple of years, being the #1 overall pick, that puts a lot of pressure on a guy. Not having success in A-ball as the #1 pick, that puts pressure. One torn ACL, that's pressure to come back from that. Second torn ACL, that doesn't happen to anybody. And so I think what he showed in kind of the mettle in not wilting under that pressure, which I think is a bigger picture experience that not many of these guys, even in the big league dugout, get. I think compared to that, when he steps into the batter's box, when he's out there at third base, that's his comfort zone. And I think that's what I look at. I also look at the fact that the league never adjusted to him last year. They tried to pitch him different ways. He adjusted back to them every time. So in a way, he was almost slump-proof. He would come back from these huge stretches off, and he would just be doing whatever. He'd be hitting singles to right field when that's what came. He'd be hitting homers to right, pulling grand slams. I mean, the skill set and the moxie and just kind of the journey he's been through, I think that primes him for what's out ahead of him this season here.
Hey, I talked to him in spring training about hitting grand slams, and he goes, I said, what's the pressure like? And he goes, there's no pressure on me. It's all on the pitcher, because he's got himself into a pickle already, because these players got on base because of him, so he's already nervous. So I'm just looking to hit something, and if he wants to walk me, fine, I get the run in. He goes, I don't go looking for slams, which I thought was very unique from a guy who has 5 already in his back pocket.
Right, and that's exactly what it is. You look at him at 24, and you look at the maturity that's imparted by, again, the pressure of being 1-1, not living up to that right away, of having to go through all the setbacks to get to this point, of having the doubters, of having the vocal doubters, and then coming through and having the season he did, continuing that into the playoffs. I think especially coming off what he's done the last 2 years, coming back, going into the playoffs the way he did, he's seen most of what he's going to see in this game.
Yeah.
He's endured those pressure situations, and again, like, he can say, it's easy for a guy to say that, like, oh yeah, the pressure's on them, but when you watch him play the game, I really do believe that that's what he internalizes.
Yeah, it is remarkable how he has been able to make the transition. Coming up before we're done, we're going to walk you right up to first pitch. Pierre Nugent is going to join us in the studio. We have a lot of conversations, including with Corey Provis, who's the new television voice of the Twins. And I want to thank you now, though, Doe, for all your help. And where do people find you on Twitter? And your stuff is obviously at MLB.com. But what's your Twitter handle for quick, instant updates of what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, MLB.com, and then at Do-Hyoung Park. That's DOHYOUNG Park, PARK.
And he is definitely somebody that'll let you know what's going on with his club. All right,